Welcome to Creepy Corner Stories, where every shadow has a secret. Tonight's tale takes us inside an abandoned apartment, one that's been locked up for decades, but never truly empty. They say the last tenants vanished without a trace, and late at night, whispers still echo through the halls. Some doors stay shut for a reason. This is the story of the haunted apartment, only on Creepy Corner Stories. They say apartment 3C in the old Maplewood Heights complex has been empty since 1994. No tenants. No visitors. No explanations. Most of the building has been renovated over the years, fresh paint, new locks, modern wiring. But not 3C. That door. Still sealed with rusted chains and a thick layer of dust, as if the apartment itself refused to be touched. The official story? A gas leak. The truth? Much darker. When Lana, a struggling architecture student, stumbled across the place during a research project, she was drawn in by the mystery. She had a fascination with forgotten buildings, structures with history and secrets buried in their walls. So, when her mentor mentioned the infamous 3C, her curiosity flared. She bribed the old maintenance man, a jittery guy with more gray in his beard than in his hair, to let her in, just for a few photos. "I'll give you 10 minutes, he said, not meeting her eyes. "Don't touch anything. Don't stay after dark." Lana laughed. She was used to old-timers exaggerating. But when he slid the key across the counter, she noticed his hands were trembling. The moment she stepped inside, the air changed. It wasn't just cold, it was wrong. Heavy. Like the apartment hadn't breathed in years but was still somehow watching. The living room was perfectly preserved, almost like a museum. A coffee cup still sat on the table. Children's toys lined up neatly by the wall. But everything was coated in a thick film of dust, and something else. A dark, sticky residue near the bedroom door. She took photos, jotting notes, pretending the growing unease in her gut was just the old building playing tricks on her. But then she heard it. Tap tap tap. From the hallway. Then a soft creak. She turned. The bedroom door was open. She was sure it had been closed. Lana approached, camera in hand, heart pounding. She stepped inside, and the door slammed shut behind her. Pitch black. Silent. Until she heard whispering. Dozens of voices layered on top of each other, all saying the same word over and over. Stay. 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 Her flashlight flickered on. The walls were covered in handprints. Small handprints. And in the center of the room, carved into the floor with something sharp, was a phrase. They never left. Her flashlight died. Her scream was swallowed by the silence. The maintenance man waited in the hallway, checking his watch. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Then 20. He didn't go in. He never did. He just relocked the chains on apartment 3C and walked away, mumbling to himself. Another one who didn't listen. To this day, the light in 3C flickers on at night, just for a moment. Some say if you pass by and look through the peephole, you'll see a woman standing in the hallway. Camera in hand. Eyes wide. Mouth open, like she's still screaming. But no one hears her. Because in apartment 3C, once you enter, you never really leave. They say the rent was cheap for a reason. Kieran had just moved to the city and needed a place fast, quiet, affordable, no questions asked. So when the listing for apartment 6B popped up, fully furnished, utilities included, no background check, he jumped at it. The building was ancient. Cracked bricks, flickering hallway lights, an elevator that groaned like it was alive. But 6B itself? Surprisingly clean. A little outdated, sure, but livable. There was only one strange thing. The bedroom mirror. It was built into the wall, floor to ceiling, impossible to remove. and someone had scratched something into the glass, barely visible under the light. He's still here. Kieran figured it was a prank from the last tenant. Creepy, but nothing to lose sleep over. At first. The first night was silent. Too silent. No cars outside. No neighbors. Just the buzz of a weak ceiling light. At 3:17 a.m., Kieran woke up, heart racing. No noise. No nightmare. Just a feeling. Like someone had been watching him. He turned on the lamp. Nothing. Except. In the mirror, just for a split second, he swore he saw someone standing behind him. But when he spun around, the room was empty. Over the next few nights, it got worse. The reflection started lagging behind. He'd wave, and the mirror version of him would wave back, a second too late. Sometimes, when he left the room and came back, his reflection would already be there, waiting. Smiling. He called the landlord. No answer. He asked the neighbors, all three of them refused to even talk about 6B. One of them muttered, that place should be bricked shut. Kieran tried to ignore it. Until he found the journal. Stuffed behind a loose tile in the bathroom wall. A faded leather notebook, stained and torn. Inside were entries, all written by different hands, different years. Each one dated exactly 1 month apart. Each one ending with the same sentence. The mirror is not a reflection. It's a door. That night, he couldn't sleep. The mirror loomed in the dark, almost glowing. He covered it with a bedsheet. At 3:17 a.m., the sheet slid off on its own. And this time, his reflection didn't move at all. Kieran stared at himself, or what looked like himself, standing perfectly still in the mirror, while he trembled with fear. Then, the reflection blinked. But he didn't. He ran. Down the hallway. Past the elevator. Toward the stairs. But when he reached the bottom, the lobby was gone. The front door. Bricked up. The windows. Just painted walls. He was back in his apartment, only now, everything was reversed. Backwards. Reflected. And in the mirror, he saw himself, sleeping in bed. Back in the real world. Trapped. Some say apartment 6B has no tenants, but it always has someone inside. Not someone living, but someone watching. And if you ever rent the place, don't trust your reflection. It might just be waiting for you to blink. There's a building downtown no one ever talks about. It doesn't show up on Google Maps. There's no website. No leasing office. No one remembers when it was built, just that it's always been there. And on the 4th floor, there's a room that should be empty. But the lights never go off. Room 405. Alina was a freelance photographer, shooting old buildings for an upcoming magazine piece on urban isolation. The editor gave her a tip, try the Faro building. Creepy as hell. Barely anyone lives there. When she showed up, the lobby was deserted. No front desk. No staff. The place felt stale. Like a museum sealed off from time. She rode the elevator up to the top floor, her camera in hand, the fluorescent lights above her buzzing weakly. That's when she noticed it. There was no button for the 4th floor. Just 1, 2, 3, then it skipped to 5. Still, her elevator stopped on 4. The doors creaked open slowly, revealing a dim hallway. Thick, moldy carpet. Yellowing wallpaper that peeled like dead skin. And at the far end, a single door. 405. The brass number was tarnished, but someone had recently slid a note under the door. Alina, curiosity burning, picked it up. It was damp and wrinkled, but she could just make out the words. She won't stop knocking. She raised her camera to snap a shot of the door, and nearly dropped it. Her viewfinder showed something else. A woman standing in front of the door. Pale. Barefoot. Head tilted. Wearing a hospital gown stained with something brown. But when she lowered the camera, no one was there. She looked again through the lens. The woman was closer. Alina backed away slowly, then turned to run. But the hallway behind her was gone. Just more hallway. More doors. All marked, 405. Dozens of them. She started running. Door after door after door. Each identical. Each one knocking from the inside. Soft at first. Then louder. Then violent. Bang. 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 And from behind one door, she heard it. A whisper. Open it. Please, open it. Her hand reached out before she even realized it. The doorknob was ice cold. She turned it. The hallway returned. She stood in front of the real 405. Alone. Sweating. Heart pounding. The elevator dinged behind her. She didn't wait. She ran. Out of the building. Into the daylight. She never returned. But sometimes, late at night, Alina still dreams of room 405. And always, just before she wakes, she hears the knocking again. Louder than before. Closer. And the whisper, soft as breath on her neck. Next time, you won't wake up. Rumor has it the Pharaoh building still stands. And room 405 still knocks, waiting for someone to open the door. Maybe, it's waiting for you. It started with the smell. Syra had just moved into a cheap apartment complex on the outskirts of the city. A rundown building with thin walls, leaky faucets, and a constant hum from the old ventilation system. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. For the first week, everything was fine. Until the smell came. Like rotting meat and damp earth. Strongest in the bedroom. Seeping through the vents. She complained to the landlord, who brushed it off. Old building. Probably mold. I'll send someone. But no one ever came. Then came the noises. At night, when the city quieted down and all you could hear was the ticking of the wall clock, she'd hear something crawling in the vents. Scraping. Dragging. And sometimes, whispering. It wasn't rats. She knew what rats sounded like. This was bigger. Heavier. Human. She put her ear to the wall one night and heard breathing. Right behind the vent cover. She tried recording it, but nothing ever showed up. Just static. And once, a faint voice. I see you. She stopped sleeping. A few nights later, she woke up to find the vent cover in her bedroom, unscrewed. It was just hanging there, loose. On the floor below it, muddy handprints. Bare human hands. With long fingers. Too long. She locked her bedroom door from then on. Slept with the light on. But every night, the scraping got louder. Closer. Sometimes she'd hear soft laughter, echoing through the metal tunnels above her ceiling. And always, the smell. Rotten, wet, and warm. One morning, she decided she couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed a flashlight, unscrewed the vent, and shined the light inside. It stretched back far, darker than it should have been. And right before she pulled the flashlight out, she saw eyes. 2 of them. Glassy. Unblinking. Watching. She screamed and fell back, just in time for the flashlight to be pulled into the vent, by something with gray, bony fingers. She ran. Told the landlord. He just stared at her and said, "You live in apartment 207? She nodded. He looked away. You weren't supposed to move in yet. That unit's been sealed for years. Why? He took a long breath. The man who lived there before you, he used to crawl through the vents. Said there were voices inside. Said they showed him things. He was found dead inside the walls. No one ever figured out how he got in there. That night, Syra moved out. But she never really left it behind. Because every time she turns on the bathroom fan, or hears the AC kick in, she hears the faint whisper again. You opened the vent, now I'm in yours. They say the man in the vents never dies. He just waits for someone to listen. And now, maybe you're hearing him too. Rahil was a night shift security guard at an old office building downtown, 12 floors, barely occupied, and half the time the lights didn't work. The building had been around since the 60s, and rumors swirled about all sorts of things: embezzlement, a suicide, even a fire on one of the upper floors. But Rahil didn't believe in ghosts. He just needed the paycheck. His job was simple. Check the lobby. Walk each floor. Clock in at the top floor, then ride the elevator back down. But during his second week, he noticed something strange. Every time he passed the 9th floor, the elevator paused. Not opened. Not dinged. Just stopped. For exactly 13 seconds. Even though the 9th floor had been sealed off years ago. He brought it up with his supervisor. They looked him dead in the eye and said, "We don't have a 9th floor." He thought it was a joke, until he checked the panel. Sure enough, the button was missing. 1 through 8. Then 10 through 12. Number 9. But the elevator still stopped, and sometimes, when it did, Rahil swore he heard footsteps in the hallway outside. One night, curiosity got the best of him. He waited until 3 a.m., then forced the elevator to pause between floors using the emergency stop button. When it halted, between 8 and 10, he used a flathead screwdriver to pry open the doors. Behind them was a hallway. Dusty. Dim. Lit by a single flickering bulb. And at the end of it, a door. Room 913. He stepped out, just for a second. Just to see. The floor was cold beneath his boots, and the air smelled like burnt paper. Then the elevator behind him slammed shut. Lights went out. Silence. Except, a sound. Wet. Slithering. Coming from the end of the hallway. He turned toward room 913. The door had opened slightly, just enough to see someone standing behind it. Tall. Twisted. With limbs too long and eyes that didn't blink. And it whispered. "Come in. We've been waiting." Rahil sprinted back to the elevator. Pounded the buttons. Nothing. Then, slowly, the doors opened. He jumped in, hit L, and the elevator dropped faster than it ever had before. When it stopped, the lobby was empty. Dark. The front doors were gone. Replaced by another hallway. Just like the one on the 9th floor. He never made it out. Security footage showed him entering the elevator that night, but never leaving it. And now, every so often, the elevator pauses between 8 and 10. And if you listen closely, you might hear someone whispering behind the doors. "Help me. Please, press 9. But don't. Because if you do, you'll ride it too. And the elevator? It doesn't come back down." It started as a rumor in a group chat. A mysterious phone number, +91 999 000 1313. No one knew who owned it. But the story was always the same. You call it after midnight and someone answers. Not a voice. Just, breathing. They say if you stay on the line long enough, the voice starts to mimic yours. And then, you're never quite the same. Of course, Armin didn't believe it. He was the skeptic of the group, always joking about ghosts and curses. So when his friends dared him to call the number at 12:13 a.m., he laughed, grabbed his phone, and hit dial. Ring. Ring. Then, click. No hello. Just breathing. Shallow. Wet. Like someone just woke up from a long sleep. He chuckled, okay, nice prank. But then the breathing changed. It matched his. Inhale when he inhaled. Exhale when he exhaled. He froze. Then, on the other end, came a whisper. I'm behind you. He spun around. Nothing. He hung up, heart pounding. Tried to laugh it off, but his hands were shaking. And when he looked down at his screen, the call hadn't ended. 13 seconds. 14 seconds. He pressed END again. Still ticking. He powered off the phone. Still ticking. The next day, Armin's friends joked about it. But Armin didn't laugh. He hadn't slept, because every time he closed his eyes, he heard his own voice whispering in his ear. He tried changing numbers. New SIM card. New phone. Didn't matter. At 12:13 a.m. every night, the call came back. And every night, the voice got clearer. Stronger. More, like him. A week later, Armin stopped answering texts. When his friends went to check on him, his apartment door was wide open. No sign of a struggle. But his phone was on the bed, still recording a call. Duration, 6 days, 14 hours, 22 minutes. And on the audio? Just one voice. Breathing. Whispering. You called me. Now we're the same. They say if you call that number now, it doesn't ring anymore. It just picks up. And you hear someone breathing. Sometimes crying. Sometimes, laughing. And if you listen long enough, the voice on the other end, it starts saying your name. So remember. If someone dares you to call +91 999 000 1313, don't. Because the call doesn't end. And once you hear the voice, it never leaves you. In a small town tucked away in the hills, there was a shop that sold more than just antiques. The shopkeeper, an old woman named Mrs. Mather, had a reputation for selling things that weren't quite right, old books that whispered when you opened them, dolls that seemed to blink, and paintings that looked like they changed when you weren't looking. But there was one item that always stood out in the corner of the shop, a large, ornate mirror framed in blackened wood, with intricate carvings of strange symbols and swirling patterns. The Mirror of Aisha. The moment anyone looked at it, they'd get a strange, unsettling feeling, like something was staring back. But it wasn't until you touched it that you truly felt its curse. Sahil, a young man new to the town, had heard the rumors. People said the mirror was cursed, that it could show you things that weren't there, or worse, pull you into its reflection. But he didn't believe in superstitions. Curiosity, more than anything, drove him into the shop one rainy afternoon. Mrs. Mather was behind the counter, humming softly. She didn't even look up when Sahil entered, but her eyes followed him as he approached the mirror. He stared into it. The glass was black, like a pool of oil. At first, his reflection looked normal, but as he stood there, the edges of the mirror seemed to warp. It felt like the room around him was fading away, like the mirror was sucking the light into itself. You should leave that alone. Mrs. Mather's voice was soft, but firm. Sahil turned to her, dismissing her with a smile. It's just a mirror, right? He didn't buy it. But that night, as he laid in bed, the unease started creeping in. The mirror was in the living room, but it felt like it was watching him. He could see it from his bed, its surface reflecting the faint glow of the streetlights outside. Something about the way it shimmered felt wrong. At 3 a.m., he woke up with a start. A soft whisper echoed from the living room. He sat up, listening. The whisper was faint, almost inaudible, but it sounded like his name. Sahil. He grabbed his phone and turned on the flashlight. It was dark, silent. His apartment was still. But when he looked over at the mirror, he saw something he hadn't noticed before, a figure standing in the reflection. A woman. Her face pale, her hair long and matted. She wasn't in the room with him, just in the mirror. But her eyes, they weren't looking at him. They were staring through him, like she was reaching out, trying to pull him in. The next day, Sahil was exhausted. He couldn't get the image of her out of his head. He tried to ignore it, but the mirror started to haunt him. At night, the whispers grew louder. Every time he walked past the mirror, he could see her in the reflection, standing still, but getting closer, every time he blinked. That's when it happened. He went to bed one night, thinking he was just exhausted and imagining things. But when he woke up, his body felt strange. Heavy. Unmovable. As if something was pinning him to the bed. And then he saw it. The woman was standing over him. In his room. But her body was wrong. Twisted. Her arms bent at odd angles, her face, not her face anymore. It was his face, stretched into a grotesque grin. He couldn't move, couldn't scream. His eyes were locked with hers as she leaned down, her breath hot on his ear, her voice a soft, rasping whisper. You wanted to look. Now you'll never leave. The next morning, Sahil's apartment was found empty. His clothes, his belongings, everything was gone. The only thing left in the room was the mirror of Aisha, sitting silently in the corner. They say the mirror still calls to people, tempting them to look. And if you do, you'll see her, Aisha, or whatever she is now, staring back at you. But that's not the worst part. If you touch it, if you really touch it, the mirror won't just show you a reflection. It will show you your future. And once it shows you, it starts pulling you in. Slowly, piece by piece, until you're nothing but another reflection, trapped forever in the glass. Some say the mirror's curse is tied to Aisha's tragic story, but no one really knows who she was. Or why she's so angry. Just don't touch the mirror. And for God's sake, don't look into it too long. Because once you see her, she sees you. And that's it for today's story, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this chilling tale. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with anyone who loves a good scare, and of course, subscribe to Creepy Corner Stories for more terrifying tales. And if you haven't already, make sure to ring the bell so you don't miss out on our next horror-filled adventure. Stay spooky, and remember, the darkness is always closer than you think.